Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. Ever heard about a guy named Elbridge Colby? Until recently, few people did, but that was before the Ukraine aid suspension debacle. Quick recap for all of you. The Pentagon has halted deliveries of weapons to Ukraine, including some Patriot missiles, citing domestic security concerns. Since this happened at a time when Moscow became particularly trigger-happy with Shahed drones, many say this sabotages Kiev's war of survival at a critical moment. America's back? More like America's turning its back, critics say. And on that particular issue, they are not completely wrong. Enter the aforementioned Elbridge Colby, a defense official mostly known for his fixation on China, as well as his baffling scuffles with the weird and wonderful online community of Ukraine supporters known as the North Atlantic Fellas Organization, or NAFO for short. Now, however, the guy became Under-Secretary of Defense for Policy, and it was his decision that apparently brought all this mess about. Understandably, this prompted a choir of anger and disappointment. Peace through no strength was one of the most impactful comments I've seen, with others asking if forcing Ukraine into surrender by depriving it of ways of fighting back against aggression was the actual White House policy in 2025. Plus, the Russians said they appreciate the gesture, saying it will help end the war. Now, that is the fake of the day that we need to break. Forcing Ukraine into surrender is no peace plan, and clearly not Nobel Peace Prize material. Now, those who are never fans of Donald Trump have one more reason to post angry comments. But it is not just the Trump haters sounding off either. Trump's spiritual advisor, Pastor Mark Burns, wrote that, and I quote, "We need to arm Ukraine heavily, not to escalate the war, but to defend innocent people and save lives." Also, conservative newspaper The New York Post slammed the decision in an editorial, saying that, and I quote once again, "The Pentagon's decision to pause aid to Ukraine is a massive blunder. President Donald Trump should reverse it ASAP." So, could this still happen? Well, apparently Secretary Hegseth had already paused Ukraine aid once without consulting the president. Either that or he forgot to add him on the Signal chat room. Anyway, if it's Elbridge Colby's fixation on not helping Ukraine causing the whole mess, then it's evidently a case of the tail wagging the dog. And the dog would be advised to, bite back. You can rely on President Trump when it comes to firing people. He definitely has the experience, and Elbridge Colby wouldn't last 5 minutes on The Apprentice. Also, Trump has recently shown that "you're fired" isn't the only firing-related phrase he's quite comfortable with, judging by how the Ayatollahs in Iran are still looking for whatever's left of their uranium enrichment gear left buried beneath the rubble. This is what John Herbst, former US ambassador to Ukraine under President George W. Bush, is essentially saying. Give Russia the Iran treatment, except with the economic bunker buster that is the sanctions bill currently in the Senate. And I couldn't agree more. Keep the aid flowing. Keep the sanctions rolling like your Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit. Throw in a whimsical "thank you for your attention to this matter" on Truth Social, and profit. Win-win for everyone, except for Moscow. Everyone seems to know the old army adage, friendly fire isn't. And yet, some of the conclusions drawn from this simple truth are rather baffling. Check out the latest statement from Russian officials concerning the need to rebuild villages destroyed by their own bombs. I'm not even kidding. Olga Germanova, a member of the Russian State Duma from the United Russia Party, said that it was inappropriate to rebuild some of the villages in the Kursk region that had been damaged by Russian bombs when the Russians were trying to drive out a tactical Ukrainian incursion there. And that, apparently, is because it is unlikely that anyone will return to live there. What a refreshing concept. The state doesn't need to care for anyone's livelihoods if they are considered disposable.
Пострадали 9 наших районов Курской области, 6 из них входят в мой избирательный округ. Удар 6 августа, он, конечно, просто перевернул мир, он разделил жизнь на до и после. Суджанский район и город Суджа, конечно, пострадали катастрофически. Разрушения колоссальные, вряд ли что-то там подлежит восстановлению. Понятно, что есть села, где было, допустим, 50 человек, 150 человек, и вряд ли туда кто будет возвращаться. Ну, нет, наверное, смысла их восстанавливать, поэтому надо делать базовые села, надо будет делать базовые школы, надо будет делать базовые объекты культуры, и сколько вот таких базовых объектов нужно будет определять по каждому региону.
Indeed. Why rebuild what was bombed if you can simply cross it out on the map and pretend that nothing ever happened? Russia, apparently, is the ultimate anti-welfare state. Ordinary people get nothing, so that Putin's cronies can wage senseless wars and keep mansions and yachts in coveted parts of the world. The Kremlin's rhetoric in this regard follows a clear pattern. They talk about liberation, translated conquest, occupation, and low-key ethnic cleansing of Ukraine's Zaporizhia region, more often than about their own bombed-out areas. Moscow is busy dreaming about the so-called Novorossiya, New Russia, a fictitious construct designed to justify occupation of Ukraine, but when someone mentions the losses sustained in the Kursk region of Russia itself, it seems they don't even care. When Ukraine made incursions there to draw Russian forces away, they technically invaded Russia. Did nukes start flying? No, they didn't. And once the region's been recaptured by Moscow, does anyone rush to rebuild the local communities? Not really. After all, no Russian oligarch's real estate was harmed in the course of this campaign, and the idea of Russia caring for ordinary people is long gone, along with more than 1 million of Russian war casualties. Dmitry Medvedev, deputy head of the Russian Security Council and full-time Telegram expert in apocalyptic theories and proclamations, proudly announced that in the first 6 months of 2025, more than 210,000 contract soldiers and another 18,000 volunteers joined the Russian army. And everything would be fine if not for one caveat. For some reason, the number of troops did not increase.
В целом, хочу сказать, что темп набран весьма приличный, хороший. И на 1 июля воинские части прибыло более 210 тысяч человек. Кроме того, в добровольческие подразделения с начала года принято свыше 18 тысяч человек. Это, безусловно, результат общей работы. Хочу поблагодарить всех, кто принимает участие в этой деятельности, за такие высокие результаты. Ну и, конечно, отметить патриотический настрой всех наших граждан, которые поступили на военную службу, которые заключили контракт. Рассчитываю на то, что удастся сохранить такую же динамику и в последующее время. Ну а задачи, поставленные Верховным Главнокомандующим в этой сфере, будут надлежащим образом исполнены.
Indeed, 210,000 is not just 3 soldiers and a tractor. This is almost the whole of St. Petersburg at the training ground. But we don't see any new troops or victories, only another gesture of goodwill in the form of escapes from another settlement. Increasing the number of contract soldiers sounds great in reports, especially when they can be presented nicely on TV. However, in real life this does not add tanks, combat-ready units and, most importantly, victories on the battlefield. It only adds new gravestones and cemeteries, with volunteer signs, more waves of hidden mobilization, and of course, more public rhetoric in the style of "there are many of us, you just don't see us." Yeah, sure. And with this, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.